Energy transition, it's dominated discussions across major global and regional summits and platforms. And India's commitment to reach net zero emissions by 2070 and to meet 50% of its electricity requirements from renewable energy sources by 2030, it's a hugely significant moment for the global efforts in this regard. And to that end, Fluence India, a venture, has been set up to provide battery-based energy storage products to the Indian market. Fluence is a global market leader in energy storage products and services and cloud-based software for renewables and storage. With a presence in over 40 markets globally, the company is transforming the way we power our world by helping customers create more resilient and sustainable electric grids. And today, we're joined by Fluence SVP and Chief Business Operations and Transformation Officer, Roman Lawson, and Fluence SVP and President, Asia Pacific, Jan Tishman. Thank you so much for joining us on WION.
Thank you for having us.
To begin with, could you tell us a little bit about Fluence and what would you say is the larger goal of this venture?
Let me start to talk a little bit about Fluence. Fluence was founded in 2018 as a joint venture of Siemens and AES, AES being a utility transmission company in the United States. We operated in the beginning out of Americas, pretty much focused on America and EMEA, Europe, because these have been the home bases of these two companies, Siemens and AES. But very fast, we recognized that we have to move into Asia Pacific as well, being the biggest continent with the biggest population and certainly with the biggest energy demand. So within that, moving to Asia Pacific, we started to identify the countries to focus on, and naturally India was picked as one of the most important places to focus on in Asia, simply because of the growth the country is having, industrial growth, population growth. Basically, this make India the most attractive location to go in. Also in the context with the goals communicated by the government to become CO2 footprint neutral by 2030, other reason for us to be here. And so we started with a relatively small team, something like 3 years ago. Meanwhile, the office in India became a very significant operation, doing products and technology for India, for Asia Pacific, but also for the globe.
I mean, we're still considered a startup and a younger company, basically only having these 5 years of history, as Jan alluded to. And since 3 years, basically ago, we had our IPO. And what is important to know about us, we are a startup that grew significantly in that time. We basically doubled our revenues every year. And already being a significant company today with our official forecast standing at more than 2 billion revenue that we want to do globally this year. And we are positive that we're continuing on our growth path also in the near future because of that super interesting market that we are in.
Now to the both of you, what can you tell us about Fluence India's Innovation Center and what role will it play in the company's operations?
Yeah, the Innovation Center is something that we are basically opening and inaugurating today here in Bangalore. And it is really something that we want to build into our global chain. I mean, I've been working in India during several years. And what we definitely do not want to do is have this center as an extended workbench. We see it at the heart of our value chain. So for all of our operations, may it be in product development, may it be with a digital service center that we want to establish here in India and in Bangalore, may it be in our supply chain. We really see this innovation center as a part of our global value chain. We have global leaders who are located here in this center and who really lead the global practice throughout all of the countries. We have people sitting in this center who support projects directly being executed in the European markets and also in the future in the Americas markets, and strongly supporting also Jan's region here in APEC. So therefore, this is really a global center that we are establishing here, that we're building on, and that is servicing all of Fluence in North America, in Europe, and in Asia Pacific. So if you're interested in this one, I'm definitely happy to welcome anybody on board. We will increase the size of our team significantly, and we believe in the strength of the talent bench that we find here in India and Bangalore.
Let's also talk about the other aspects of this venture. What can you tell us about the investments that Fluence is making in India?
We basically have two aspects. One is this innovation center. So here we are investing significant money, as Roman just alluded, in the development of global services and products coming out of Bangalore. The second part, which we did more than a year ago, is forming this joint venture with Renew. Everyone in India knows Renew as being one of the biggest renewable project developers. We formed a joint venture more than a year ago, which is called Fluence India, home-based in Delhi. And they are going after the market in India in cooperation with Fluence headquarters being here and Renew. So basically that's this our two core investments we have taken. So the Innovation Center is providing the technologies, services for Asia Pacific, for global, and the JV is our way to address the Indian market. So,
yeah, and potentially adding to the reasoning why we are taking also this investment into the Innovation Center here in Bangalore. So we already had an established presence here in Bangalore. But then when we talked about the need of having a global innovation center, we really ran a global exercise of looking at different countries, different places where we should be located, may it be China, may it be Vietnam, European locations, you name it. But it is really that we are convinced that we are finding the best talent and the best location to drive this global innovation and to establish the innovation center here in Bangalore, here in India. It is there where we want to build the biggest density of our talent bench and the center.
And as I mentioned earlier, India has set ambitious targets when it comes to renewable energy. I want to first ask you, what's your assessment of these targets, and then how is Fluence, or how are Fluence products helping in reaching these goals?
The market fundamentals in India are fantastic for storage. So, in fact, the Indian government announced the target of becoming CO2 neutral by 2030. And doing so, you need renewables. You need wind, you need solar, other energy sources which are from the renewable space. The two I just named, wind and solar, dependent on weather conditions. The solar is generating energy when the sun is shining, and wind when the wind is blowing. But there might be irregularities in the generation simply if a cloud shows up or the wind speed reduces or increases. So, and what we do with storage is to balance the energy generation and make it fit to the demand, being the component in the context of solar and wind, being the components to balance that out. So, and what we do, number one, we are having this center here to develop the products needed for the market, specifically for India. And we are doing also the manufacturing, the sourcing of the products and components in India. So basically, our motto for the center here is making products for India, as I said before, for APAC and the globe. But specifically, if you look at India, is we are determining which products are really needed, how we make them in the most effective way, fitting in the Indian context. So what we have today, we are having several projects already in the process of being built based on products made from here and built in India. So to my knowledge, we are doing the biggest projects in that context in India today. So there's nobody else doing projects of that size.
And I would also want to underline basically the importance of energy storage as a whole in this in the market of renewables, because it's really as simple as such. At night, the sun is not shining, and we just need to store the energy somewhere. We do have sometimes the situation where the wind is blowing very strong. That could actually lead to a breakdown of the grid. And then how do we stabilize the grid? And again, energy storage is an important element in this one. And also when you think about power outages that now and then occur, actually the energy storage can help providing electricity during that time when you face the power outage. So it's these simple things where really energy storage is an absolute must in when you think about renewable energy and bringing that to the country.
Yes.
Now, I'm assuming that implementing such projects is never a straightforward task. What would you say are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to the India market?
Well, certainly every project, no matter where we do it globally, is understanding the local circumstances. So what is the existing grids? What is the strengths of the existing grid? What are the regulative requirements? Yeah, what are the standards we have to fulfill? What are all these elements we had to understand, and it's no hurdle bigger than in any other place where we start new. So we started this about 2 years ago, and the first part was to really get a full picture of what is really required in India. So we came this already, so we know what the Indian market really needs. And I would say the next aspect is scaling. That's described it as a India-specific hurdle, but this is a hurdle which also exists everywhere, is how to scale it. And in the context of India, how to scale it based on what is available on components, products, and resources in India. So the next aspect is exactly the scaling, and certainly also the being ahead of competition, being faster and being more competitive than others. So this is the hurdle we are working on right now. I strongly believe that we are ahead of many others simply because we started a while ago and we have big projects in execution. Certainly we have to be fast to keep that this ahead position.
And also, what can you tell us of your plans to localize your energy storage products?
Basically, our target is to localize almost 100% of it. So we localize already the resources, and we are in process to localize all the products. So we are identifying manufacturing partners making our products. So the target is to be 100% localized in the range by 2025, 2026, something in that range. Don't have any more need for importing anything. That's the target.
Now, Mr. Lawson, as talk of transition takes center stage, and I would say it's also made its way into public discourse, what are some of the shifts that you've observed in consumption trends, or what would you say are some of the shifts that are required going forward?
Yeah, I think the big shift that we're seeing basically when we think about traditional power sources that we had in there, when we talk about coal, when we talk about gas, we're basically talking about a rather stable power supply that was there. When we bring renewables into the grid, then we are just facing a different volatility. So I mentioned that earlier on, but basically at night the sun is not shining. So when you talk about PV, then that is definitely a challenge when the wind blows differently. Also, water is not available everywhere. So you just need to think the whole energy grid in a different way when you talk about renewable energy in comparison to traditional energy sources. And from that perspective, in that trend, energy storage is an essential element because that helps you to mitigate basically that volatility that you bring to the market. It brings stability to the grid, basically enables you to supply energy in a stable manner to all of the households that need it in the different cities. And this is a big trend that we have seen actually as the biggest and first developers in the US, especially in California, because the local government, the state government basically drove that process very strongly with a strong renewable energy agenda. And that led also for us to the situation where still until today, we see basically 60% of even the world market being in that one state in California, and actually some other US states like Texas, for instance, following closely. because they really have that vision regarding the grid. They also have one grid that is dedicated to their state that they manage, and they integrate the renewable sources, mostly solar in that sense. Now, we see some other countries globally also moving in that direction, like, for instance, Germany, that also has a very strong renewable agenda. And also in our own business, these markets are growing. And then when we think about Asia Pacific, and I think Jan can also talk to that one, we also had some first movers like the Philippines. But now it is really that India is an up and coming market. So it's basically these two elements how we are looking at it. I'm mostly looking at the Global Innovation Center and really having India service the world as a part of our global chain, whilst Jan is really focusing on establishing our business here in India and driving this one forward, because in India as a market is really something that is growing in renewables, also with a clear strategy, as we talked about, from the government. And therefore, this is basically another trend that we see.
Yeah, and adding to this, India doesn't have the natural resources like gas or oil even in very big numbers. So the majority needs to be imported. And the Indian government has a strategy to become independent of these imports. And what is the natural answer? You need renewables. And the technical aspect and the commercial advantage was just explained by Roman. We need the stabilizing elements of storage to make renewables really as reliable as a gas power plant or coal or something. And that's what storage does.
Well, Mr. Lawson and Mr. Tishman, thank you so much for joining us on WION. We wish you all the best for your future projects and endeavors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.